Welcome to Flyover Conservative Podcast with David and Stacy Whited, where we break down current events and examine culture through the lens of conservative Christian values.
You know, one thing we try to use a lot for this platform we developed here, the Flyover Conservative Show, is to highlight people that are doing something. There's really two categories of people in this world. People that sit there and watch things happen, and those that get involved and say, hey, I will be a part of the solution, whatever the case is, no matter what's going on. And we have somebody like that today that's taking care of something here locally. And I think this applies to everybody nationally because there's a little bit of a formula that we see happening in our country. It takes a lot of money to get into office. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of a broken system. It's supposed to be a service to the people where you're from, and I'm going to go and pay my dues, then you're going next time, all right? Now it takes a lot of money to get into office, and then when you are in office, it's time to pay the piper. Who paid for you to get there? The money seems to go around, and then the people who are actually working not necessarily heard by the people that are supposed to be representing them. It's kind of a goofy thing, but every once in a while somebody kind of steps up and says, hey, I'm going to push back. You're not doing your job. I'm going to kind of make a fuss and push back on this. And so from Kill the Phil here in the Kansas City area, we have Sarah Thompson.
Yay! Thank you guys so much.
Welcome. We're excited to have you on the show today, Sarah. So, we talked ahead of time, and I've read a little bit about what you're doing with Kill the Phil, and I noticed when I was reading...
And that's with an F. No offense out there if your name is Phil.
Yeah. No,
this has nothing to do with you. This is Phil with an F. If you're on a treadmill or mowing the grass or something, it's Kill the F-I-L-L.
Yes. So I noticed, Sarah, that you were not somebody that was very political in any way. Even in our conversations, you're like, I didn't even know our state representatives' names or senators' names, but you have gotten very involved with this situation. So you are somebody that is embodying what we say here at Flyover Conservatives: wake up, speak up, and show up. So share a little bit about your story and how you got started with Kill the Phil.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. This all started about a year ago when our little town in Raymore, Missouri, which is a suburb of Kansas City, we were notified by our local government that there was a proposal to put a landfill essentially right next to our neighborhood on the other side of our county line and our city line. So if you can imagine a neighborhood that we just built a home in, less than a year later, we're being notified that across the street, literally across the street, they want to build one of Missouri's largest landfills.
Oh my gosh.
And legally they were allowed to do it because it's in a different county. It's in a different city. It's actually, you can see on the killthephil.org website, just the geography of it. It sits next to 4 different suburbs. And this piece of land in Kansas City it stacks up right next to it. And the way the law is written today is that those neighboring counties, unless they are within a half a mile of the landfill, they don't have a say. And so our community did put the half-mile rule in, saying that they could essentially stop the landfill within a half a mile. But this landfill is it's bigger than 1 mile. And so we need to be able to, we needed to be able to change the law. It's a 50-year law that's been on the Missouri books to say any community within a 1 mile radius would be able to have a say. And we were going to change it from a half a mile to a 1 mile. And that's all we were asking: change the rule or change the law from a half mile to 1 mile. And if we did that, that could essentially allow our community to have a say, where right now we don't. And fast forward to what happened. We got our communities involved. We have a Facebook page called Stop the Lies, Stop the Landfill. Got our community rallied around it. Our local government did a fabulous job working with all of those governments that you can see on our page. And we put a bill toward the Missouri Senate and House that flew through the House with flying colors. Over 75% majority voted for it, almost 90% actually. And it went to the Senate, where we had the votes to get it passed, and we were filibustered by a handful of senators, both sides of the aisle. And we weren't given a vote. And the way the law was written is that it would only affect this area, populations over $400,000 or 400,000 people, excuse me. And no, there isn't another city in Missouri that this would impact. And yet senators from St. Louis and Springfield, Missouri, stepped in and filibustered it.
Which are hundreds of miles away. It doesn't affect them in any way.
Yeah, for those of you that have never looked at a map or something like that, Missouri's kind of shaped like this. Kansas City is sort of half on Kansas, half on Missouri. The best barbecues on the Missouri side.
Of course.
And then you got St. Louis on the other edge, which kind of basically we would kind of give to Illinois in any kind of a negotiation. They would in a hostage exchange. But okay, you can have St. Louis.
Take them, please.
And that's kind of how Missouri works. You got Columbia, the university in the middle, and kind of Springfield, for Bass Pro and the home of Leong's cashew chicken. And so that's kind of, gets you down there towards Branson. That's a little history on the background of Missouri. So you're sitting there and you're looking at what's impacting real people. That's why we have representatives. Mm-hmm. And so the House there's more of them. They're closest to you. You have the best odds of running into one of them at Walmart.
Right.
Is kind of how that's set up to be, whether you're talking a national representative or your state representative. And so it went through there, no problem. And then the Senate has to approve it. This is the same as the national bill. So when it came to the Senate, they didn't even hear it. Is that correct?
And I'm kind of thinking that maybe lobbyists are somewhere involved in this process. Is that right?
So the landfill developer that was involved in this hired over 19 lobbyists. I think they're up to, last I heard, was over 20. So if you can imagine, that's millions of dollars being spent on a powerhouse lobby team with multiple lobby firms involved. Those lobby firms were allowed a seat at the table when we weren't. Just to give you a quick example, once we were filibustered, the very next day, our senator from this area, Senator Rick Breton, decided he had had enough. And he started his own filibuster and started to filibuster everything just to basically force the issue to come back to the table, because he knew this is a multi-generational threat. This would devastate this community. Mm-hmm. You got to understand, this landfills would sit across the street from an elementary school, okay, across the street, and have 3 elementary schools within 3 miles. So this is something that would affect the health. Any kid with asthma, COPD, anything like that will be impacted dramatically. So he shut the Senate down, and he called other senators to come and help him. One of them was Senator Bill Eigel, who I believe is exploring running for governor of Missouri. And they helped him try to push the issue. I went down to Jefferson City and I was never involved. I didn't even know how to get to our state capitol. Didn't know how to maneuver around security or anything else, and just started to knock on doors of senators to ask for help. And we were told no, that we couldn't have access. The lobbyists were in the various offices of the senators that were filibustering us, but we couldn't get in. We were the ones that were being impacted, and we weren't allowed a chance to talk to any of these senators and ask for them to change on the position. And so that's when, frankly, I got fed up and said, this is enough. I have done everything that you should do. I've checked the boxes. We could go through that if you'd like, but it didn't work. And so now we've got to figure out how do we do this? How do we change things? And in retrospect, we started to realize very quickly, my family, that this is a broken system. This should never happen to a community. We had thousands of emails and phone calls. We literally were shutting their systems down. We were told by multiple representatives they've never seen a community come together like this one did. They have never seen a campaign like this community
This is
campaign
bipartisan. This is not a
on this.
Republican
No.
Democrat issue.
No.
You know, this isn't something that's polarizing and galvanizing. Like everyone
Exactly. It
loses
affects everyone.
and wins the same way on this issue, because you're talking about where it is. Who specifically was motivated against the will of the people?
Which senators?
Yeah, who was coming against this to
Are you
filibuster?
asking for their names?
Yeah,
or?
like specifically, who was the resistance in other parts of the state that didn't want this to go through? If they are as passionate about it, they don't have a problem with it being popular for this. Obviously, they care a lot.
Yeah. So we had Senator Mary Elizabeth Coleman of St. Louis. We also had Senator Trent of Springfield, Missouri. And then we also had a third senator who I think has come around, which was Senator McCreary in St. Louis. She was actually, it was kind of interesting because she had said that she was against the landfill. She's a Democrat. She was an environmentalist. And that, she just wanted to make our bill stronger. And that's why she was speaking about, adding amendments, but she did it for 80 minutes. And essentially that ran the clock down. And if you're not familiar with the way the procedures work at the Senate, as I was not familiar with it, every bill only has so much time to get across. And there's different procedures and things that go through. And we were going through our process, and we had Senator Coleman speak for 90 minutes, and followed by McCreary for 80, and then followed by Trent for 20, and that just ate up the clock, and they ran out of time. And
It's
so
baffling. I could read the entire Constitution in less than an hour.
True.
Yeah.
So that shouldn't have taken place.
So what can people do, Sarah, to make a difference in this area? Let's say that they live in the Kansas City area. They maybe even live in these areas that it would affect. What can they do to make a difference?
And before you answer that, let me add this. If you're listening to this right now and you may think, well, this is a landfill in Missouri, I don't know what this has to do. Understand the language that's being discussed here and the flow and the process. Because what she's talking about is what's broken. She's come smash into what's known as the golden rule, which is the people that have all the gold are making the rules, and they don't affect them. These are people that don't have a landfill across the street from them. It's in another part of the state, and they're receiving funds to represent people that aren't there versus representing the people who voted to have them in place to represent them, to keep this kind of thing from happening. So just forget a little of the details as you're hearing this and extrapolate the process Sarah's going through as it applies to you in West Virginia or Florida or California or Oregon or wherever you are, because the mechanisms are the same everywhere.
Yeah. I think, Stacey, going back to what you asked me earlier around what can people do. So if you are from the Kansas City area, go to killthefill.org, learn about our issue, and go to the Get Involved page, and volunteer and help and jump in and help us fight, because we're going to have to take this back to Jefferson City and help to convince those senators that, we deserve a vote. They don't need to vote for us, but just sit down and let us let our senators or the rest of the senators have a say and have a vote. Our community deserves a vote. Donate page is something I'd like to draw attention to as well for those nationally that want to help us. This is a situation where the lobby movement is in charge, and we don't have, and we need to be able to raise funds to hire our own lobbyists and help spread our word out further than just this area around here. So please go to killthefill.org, go to our donate page, learn about our story, see our community. You can see all of the children that we have impacted. We have over 50,000 people that will be impacted by this area. My property value alone is down almost 40%.
Wow.
So this is a situation that is about our communities, our children, our health, our property. Our rights are being trampled on, and we're not even allowed a vote. And so the more we can get the word out and get some help, the better. And I really appreciate you guys for having us on today.
Absolutely. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us. Again, go to killthefill.org. And before I let you go, just one last thing. You are somebody that is waking up, you're speaking up and showing up. Can you just give advice to people that are listening? Maybe they have an issue in their own area. What are different ways that they can wake up, speak up, and show up to make a difference?
I would say the easiest thing you can do is first know who your senator is. Know who state senator, know who your state representatives are, and frankly, get familiar with your state website pages. There's a lot of info. They put a lot of info out there so you can listen to hearings and see what they're bringing to the surface that will impact you. That is something very small that I never did before, and I never realized how the sessions were all streamed online, and you can see what bills are coming to the surface and who's behind them and who's not behind them. And so I would definitely say get involved in your state politics, local politics. We spend so much time on national politics, and I would argue that your state and local politics impact you even more so.
Absolutely.
Couldn't agree more. Again, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
We are here to defend democracy.
Misinformation poses a threat to our nation's health.
Climate change is an emergency.
Democratic socialism.
Codify one's right to choose.
Hell yes, we're going to take your AR-15.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0. When I invented My Pillow, it had everything you'd ever want in a pillow. Well, now there's new technology that makes it even better. My Pillow 2.0 has my patented fill combined with a cooling fabric with temperature regulating thread. My Pillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of My Pillow.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to mypillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit mypillow.com.
All right, let's get our stuff together here. Hi, I'm David Whited. If we could skip the hi, my name's David part, because that's where I kind of tend to derail. Hi. But I did good. See, look. First thing it says. Say your name. Say your name, David Whited. Have you been wondering what to do with the spare time you have on Saturday mornings? Have I got a way for you to fill that time? Not cleaning your garage, folding your laundry, or doing something with yourself. Filling your head with worthless information about what may or may not have happened 5,000 years ago. Have you ever wondered about ancient civilizations or about chemtrails in the sky? Or have you ever had a friend at school talk to you about friend at school? Some days when you're sitting there with your lunch pail, you're talking to your friends at school, they bring up your flat earth, and you think it's a flat earth. I don't know if your flat is flat or not. I don't know, alligators are angry because they got all those teeth and no toothbrush. And it's all true. And we talk about it every Saturday. We talk about Rubik's Cubes and stuff. We like to have conversations with people that have made documentaries, written books. Oh, this is terrible. I can feel myself hating watching this later. Okay, give me a swoosh. Let's do this thing for real this time. I got a show for you. Hang on, my eyes red now. You won't be able to tell in there. Peter can fix it. He can run it through a filter. Can he run it through the Brad Pitt filter and get rid of my red eyes? Oh, I'm probably doing the world a disservice. Just like when you're getting directions to go somewhere, we were headed to a new church this weekend. Our daughter was with us, and she had the map going. She's like, "How did you guys ever do this?" Before, because we had
GPS.
We had a little bit of a glitch even with the GPS because there was a conflict over what was the actual address because the place had moved, and is that the old one or the new one? And there was a little bit of stress on an exit. And it's like, how did you ever do this before GPS? I'm like, well, you had to look it up, but you had to have good advice. You had to get the exact right information if you wanted to end up where you're trying to go. If you want to end up in a place where you have money, you'll be able to protect the money that you've worked for, protect yourself from a government that's gone tyrannical and gone astray from its own standards. You need good advice. That's why we do this segment each and every week with a guy that has not one, but 2 PhDs. He's also the author of Thriving in the Economic Tsunami, Dr. Kirk Elliott.
Welcome.
Oh, it's so great to be here. And I loved your opening statement, David. I don't know what I used to do without a map thing on my phone, right? I may remember the big, huge atlases, right? You'd have them out there and you're like trying to read this huge book and you can't like look out the window while you're driving. But here's the thing, on your app, it's like you miss a turn and what does it do? It's like recalculating, right? And then it's like, you better tell me soon because there's another turn. Do I have to turn now? Do I have to keep going straight? Do I stop? What do I do? It's like, what do I do? Yeah. And then sometimes we don't even do anything wrong. And it starts recalculating. It's like, wait a second. Like I was driving through DC and I got to admit, I can't stand the DC road system because it's so confusing. And you'll have like one highway and then another highway underneath and then another one. And it's like, once you like on the bottom of like 3 merging interstates, it's like your map program doesn't know which road you're on for a second. And it's like, what? So, but here's the thing. It's like we all make mistakes. Sometimes we don't make a mistake. And it's like God, you're going through life and he has this perfect, amazing plan for you. And it's like from point A to point B, if you did it God's way, it would be an amazing life. But we're humans and we make mistakes, right? And so we veer off the course and then it's like recalculating your route. God's pulling us back, right? Because he knows where we want to go. He knows what the life that he planned for us. But our own decisions sometimes get us to the point where we've got to recalculate our route, right? And we're seeing that now with our finances 100%. Because who knew 5 years ago that we'd have a point where we're talking about potential mark of the beast and technology and reprogramming money, reprogramming ownership and having your money expire at a certain date. It's like, what? What?
Hard to believe.
Well, Towns, I'm sure
requires a recalculation and a reassessment of everything.
I'm sure Denver's similar, but when we say fly in and out of Kansas City or we go anywhere downtown, like they do not accept cash. Like the airport, and the phases through there. You get on an airplane or something like that. You can't buy anything with this. People no longer accept it in more and more locations. It slowly has to trickle its way down. Eventually it'll be like the Home Depot and these things, it happens pretty quick. And then eventually it's like the taco truck or something, they won't take it either. It becomes down to that level, but it's happening so quickly. Who would have ever thought if you had a time machine, you can go back to like 5 years ago and be like, hey, there's coming a time here pretty quick that they won't accept cash. You're like, because you have these expressions like, hey, I'll buy it for this. How much if I pay in cash? How much if I do this? Or I prefer my money in cold hard cash. It's like, man, it's becoming like a relic.
Yep.
It is a relic, and this is why they want to get rid of it. Why? Because they can't tax it, right? You can't tax something that's private. And okay, so I was watching a movie this weekend, and I almost embarrassed to say I watched it because it was really quite violent. But it was the Equalizer movie, the Denzel Washington one.
Oh yeah,
he goes against the Russian mob, and there's a scene where you've got this Russian mob guy, and he's sitting on like these mountains of cash, just like counterfeit or laundering it because they're drug trafficking, human trafficking, laundering money. And it's like, that's the good part about central bank digital currency. It would get rid of a lot of that stuff, right?
Sure.
But people don't understand the ramifications of their using that as the positive messaging, right? But what's the negative messaging? It's like you just lose all of your freedom.
Yep.
You just lost all of your freedom.
We're just like China.
Because of that. And so this is a big week in when we're talking about central bank digital currency, because tomorrow on Tuesday, the BRICS nations are meeting, right? And it's kind of like a recap for all of the new viewers, because your show is growing like wildfire. It's amazing. You got new people every single week. But tomorrow's meeting, we don't exactly know how it's going to turn out. Right. So for like a year, we've been talking about, central bank digital currency in the BRICS nations, their common currency, and it's going to be backed by gold, which was amplified by the Russian embassy on July 7th. They said, we're excited about this meeting because we're going to have a common currency backed by gold. Don't speculate. It's just what they said. Right. So then when Putin says 2 weeks ago now that maybe there's a monkey wrench in this, and maybe they're just going to actually have a common, trading mechanism between all of the BRICS nations, which is 70% of the world. That's a big trading block, right? That's huge. To say no more US dollar, period. We're going to trade in our own currencies. That's the immediate death of the US dollar, because our reserve currency status goes away for 70% of the world's population. A common currency backed by gold is a slow death to the dollar, because it's going to attract demand away from the US dollar over time. But what's the end result for gold and silver? Both of them will go up with either option, right? So this is why this is such a big day. And even as we're recording this, silver's up big today already, right? One day prior, in possible preparation for what's coming, because there's a couple markets that are very smart, and there's a market that's very dumb. Right. So the bond market is very smart, right? Because you look at interest rates and how that impacts everything from real estate to cost of borrowing to everything. So bond buyers, hedge funds, bond funds, they're actually quite astute. The precious metals markets are very astute as well, because it couples the political barometer of everything globally, geopolitical conflict, unsustainable debt, inflationary pressures, puts it all together. They look at banking crisis, right? The stock market tends to be a little bit on the dumber side when it comes to markets, because they generally respond to knee-jerk reactions, 30-second sound bites from Jim Cramer shouting from the rooftop, "You better buy Apple today." Why? Well, because I'm going to sell Apple. Who knows? But there's actually a Cramer index, which is so dumb that they, if you do the opposite of what he says, you're probably going to be in the better spot.
I've
right?
seen that. Isn't that crazy?
It is so crazy. But the stock market overall, because it's a lot of retail sector investors, tends to respond not to the rationale and the fundamentals behind a market, but a lot of times just knee-jerk reactions. Now, what we talked about last week, the Big Short guy, that movie. Well, he took a big, huge bet against the stock market. Why? Because of sound, fundamental, rational reasons. So he was the guy that called the 2009 crisis before it happened, and he shorted it massively, right? Said there's no way that these subprime mortgages and these structured products that they're putting together, these mortgage-backed securities, are actually going to fly, right? So he shorted it. He did the biggest short ever. 93% of Scion funds, which is a $2 billion fund, investments, they put it into shorting the stock market. for fundamental reasons, right? But normal retail investors don't really look at that. But I do. I look at what he's doing because I know there's sound, rational reasons behind it. So we look at what's happening right now with real estate, for example, which is a very big barometer as well of everything else. Why? Because people generally don't pay cash for houses.
Mm-hmm.
They finance them, right? Mm-hmm. Which means that takes wages into consideration. It takes the unemployment thing into consideration. It takes the global picture of all the geopolitical implications of how countries are trading back and forth with each other, because countries have to raise rates if they want to attract foreign capital inflow, right? So that's going to affect mortgage rates, right? So they're looking at all of this. Real estate is being shellacked, not just here in America, but all over the world. So the biggest real estate market in the world is China, because they have billions of people, right? So they have a big bank that's so big that they actually call it a shadow bank, right? So it's basically the government actually giving high yield investments to supposedly safe investments. Note to self, you never have a high yield investment for something that's safe. So there's something wrong with that picture to begin with, right? But so when they're giving out high yield for stuff that's something safe, note that it's not safe. Well, this bank, Zhangji Enterprise Group, they basically have assets over $1 trillion yuan. They're missing payments on pretty much everything, right? Which is going to cause a collapse in China's property sector. Well, that's going to actually spill over now. You've got analysts that are saying this is going to spill over to the housing markets globally, because China is the largest real estate sector in the world. Wow. So fallout from this is spreading to investment grade names, like what we saw with Evergrande, right? Mm-hmm. Same type of a scenario, except much larger. So dollar bonds are being dumped. These banks aren't paying back their investors at all. They're just simply not paying them back. They're saying, yeah, we have $1 trillion in debt. We're just not going to pay you back anymore. $1 trillion. I'm not dollars you want. So they're not paying it back. This is going to have spread like a contagion to other banks around the world that are invested into Chinese real estate, that are going to be impacted by the biggest bank that nobody's ever heard of, right? I mean, who's ever heard of this bank? I can't even pronounce it. Zhangji Enterprise Group, right? It's a
never heard of it,
bank, right? I mean, yeah. But yet it's $1 trillion of exposure that they're not going to pay back.
Wow.
Right.
So Kirk, what's the cause and effect of that? If I knock over Stacy's drink, that's a cause. The ripple effect is there would be coffee and whatever would come out of that cup. With this, do you see that leading to increased number of other banks failing, which would then drive people into a smaller number of banks for safety and security, which would be digital currency? Do you think it's kind of a whether it's conspiracy of those different ventures working together, or it just being a natural catastrophe that's going to lead to that naturally?
No matter how you look at it, whether it's a conspiracy, these are planned events to psychologically get people prepared for what comes like tomorrow with the BRICS meeting, right? Or whether this is just natural ramifications and bad timing, right? But I tend to think these things of this magnitude don't just sneak up on people, right? So I have a feeling like the demise of this, look at Rahm Emanuel's comment in the Clinton administration, never let a good crisis go to waste.
Yeah, that's what this looks like.
Whether the crisis was manufactured or whether it's a non-manufactured, just natural cause of events, it's happening. We don't have to look at the source. We have to look at it's happening. Right? Now, why is it's easy to identify. Banks fail because they have more withdrawals than they have deposits, and their investments go bad. Those are the only 3 reasons why banks fail. Well, you've probably got all of those happening right now because there's a massive run on that bank. People are wanting their money out, and they say, well, we don't have it because our investments were bad. Therefore, we're not paying anything off. And now all of these companies that are impacted by that, they're not getting their people aren't going to spend money on their stuff because a lot of these are manufacturers. A lot of these are people buying component parts for other stuff. This is what China does. They manufacture things, right? So if you have no money coming out of what, like the largest shadow bank in China, it's going to have impact the manufacturing world. It's going to impact final products because people can't get short-term loans for inventory loans, right? This is going to have a massive ripple effect. But the real estate one, to me, is one of the biggest barometers of them all, because real estate goes up when people have jobs and interest rates are low, when people have excess capital and they say, hey, we can afford a slightly bigger house. Let's sell what we've got and go to something else. That's all part of economic growth. We don't see that right now at all. So we're seeing the opposite. So that's going to impact everything because this is a debt-based bubble, right? So this isn't just a real estate bubble. This isn't going to impact everything. So how do you navigate through that with success, right? So to sound like a broken record as usual, silver is the best option. So, but now there's something else facing silver that's really incredible that actually adds to the safety and growth factor of it. And that is, simply put, the ratio. So old time listeners on this show, we've talked about the gold to silver ratio before.
Right. That's why silver's been the move.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I don't care if we're in gold or silver. I want to be in the one that's outperforming the other one. They're both equally as safe. They're tangible assets. So which one's doing better? Well, the ratio between the two tells you. So historically, that ratio has been 20-1. Modern day ratio is like 30-1 over the last 10 years, but we're at 84-1 today.
Wow.
So that tells us either silver is undervalued or gold is overvalued. Well, gold's not overvalued. It's going to continue to go up because of all these economic conditions, unsustainable debt, inflationary pressures, political chaos, geopolitical conflict, countries leaving the BRICS nations, the petrodollar being decimated, all of this garbage, right? So gold is going to continue to go up, which means silver is going to outperform. Now, this chart that's on the screen is a very interesting one to me because I want to share with people what happens when the gold to silver ratio breaches 80. So it's now at 84-1. Well, this happened in 89. It went over 90-1, right? So silver went up 10% in 4 months, but then up 44% in the 2.5 years that followed. That's a good return. But back in 89, we didn't have as much debt, right? So now you start adding debt and all the industrial demand for silver, and these numbers start to grow over time. You look at December of 2003, in a 10-month span, silver went up 75.5% when it breached 80. So in December of 2008, during a 12-month span, it went up 81% in 12 months, but up 375% in 30 months, in 2.5 years. That's a huge return, right? So that was during the financial crisis of 2008, right? So we have another financial crisis coming. What's going to happen? See, we keep seeing these patterns over and over and over again. And you have financial crisis, banks failing, things happening, silver goes through the roof, right? So then you look at December of 2014, and in a 4-month span, silver went up 36%. You look at what happened in 2019, went up 91% in 5 months. Every one of these times, after silver breached the 80-1 gold to silver ratio, you saw massive growth. Well, we're there right now. See, the last thing on that chart is a question mark. How high is this one going to go? Don't know. But I would expect, if you look at this pattern from 2002, 2009, 2014, 2019, it keeps going higher and higher and higher, right? So this is where I'm expecting that we're going to see massive growth in the silver markets moving ahead because of fundamental supply chain disruptions, low inventory, manufacturing demand still going through the roof, all the chaos that we're seeing. But this ratio, it's wild. It's wild to me. So I think we're going to see some massive growth. And what does that do? It minimizes your risk as an investor, maximizes your return as an investor. And that's our goal as wide and prudent investors, is exactly for that to happen.
I love it because it's a relationship with you as well. So if we get into silver and then we're like, okay, now it's time to move to gold, we are working with you and you can help us to transition to that next thing. You know, it's a relationship. It's not a one-time purchase.
Right.
And we know we hear it all the time. We actually Flyover went out on Friday for our Flyover Friday. We were having Mexican food and a Flyover family member walked in. We didn't know her, but she came up to us and she said, David and Stacy and Colton. She said, I watched your show, but she said, I love Dr. Kirk.
Yep.
That was the day. That was the conversation. She said, I love Dr. Kirk. I love watching the economic updates. And it was just exciting. But we hear that everywhere we go because it is a relationship. It's not just I purchased this and then I'm done. We actually now work with you and you're going to help us to maneuver through this time.
Well, and also keep in mind, it's not like Dr. Kirk has a back room where he's making bars of silver.
Right.
You know, he has some like vested interest in this. He's sharing via us to you what he's doing personally. He could be all in on Tesla stock or any other kind of venture. He knows this market and that's what he's doing. And then in turn, whether we did this show or not, this is exactly what we would be doing. Yep. And it's exactly what we do. Mm-hmm. You know, I mean, every month we have a predetermined percentage of what we're trying to move into silver because it's real, that has a really high floor and who knows what the ceiling is.
Yep.
Stock market, who knows what the floor is. Mm-hmm. But I guarantee it's not something where even the owners of these companies are predicting a high upside right now in this uncertainty of election year, everything that Biden's doing, the turmoil. There's no, every different front you want to look at. It's like, hey, that's a scary place to be.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, so, and that brings up a good point because I don't recommend people do anything that I don't do myself. Really, every one of my investors, you included, right? And so myself included, we're doing the exact same thing that I'm doing with my own money, right? Because it just makes sense. I mean, if I'm doing and I'm living and breathing this stuff, it's what I want everybody else to do as well. When it's time to change, it's time to change.
And something to ask when you're looking at
Yep.
I encourage people to look at options and say, hey, this, you know, Dr. Kirk's an option, find other ones, but ask this question. Here's why we were all in, you know, before we even did a show with them, is because there's no commission charged when you sell.
Huge.
That's huge. Because if you're buying 1 ounce of silver for $25 and it goes to $75, do you want to pay a commission on that increase or not? And that will be a big deal when it's time to roll out of this and into gold or back into something else. Are you paying a high commission on the back end?
That's
so
huge.
so keep involved in that. You guys go to flyovergold.com at any time. Fill out your information. There's PDFs, there's videos, there's things that you can watch on there. But get educated on this. This is a window of opportunity, regardless of how much money you have or don't have, that you can take advantage of what's happening in the world, not look back on it like, oh, the Big Short. Wish I would have been a part of the, you know, what those guys were doing. It's like, this is your chance to do that. Now go to flyovergold.com. Just enter your information. Someone on their team will set up a timed out conversation with you.
It's free.
And it's completely free. And find out what's your best move so you can sleep at night.
That is exactly right. So you go to flyovergold.com or you can call 720-605-3900. Do it today. You will not regret it. I guarantee it. We are so thankful. And every person we talk to feels the exact same way. So thanks again, Dr. Kirk, for your time. We really appreciate it. Are you having a hard time sleeping at night? Thinking, what am I going to do about my finances?
You know, times are really changing. They're changing fast. Let me give you a quick example of how. In 1920, if you had a $20 bill and 1 ounce of gold, you could go into any men's clothing store and buy an entire suit. You could buy the jacket, the shirt, the belt, shoes, the whole bit. Today, that $20 bill, what's it going to get you?
Not much.
Maybe the socks, maybe a handkerchief, but the 1 ounce of gold could still buy you the entire suit at any men's store in America. That's the difference. That's what inflation does to your dollar. It's a deflating dollar caused by inflation. Now today, that's happening faster than ever. You need somebody that you trust that can help get you out of a fake currency and into something that's going to keep you safe.
And we know a guy that has 2 PhDs by the name of Dr. Kirk Elliott. We have known him for over 25 years, and he's someone we completely trust.
You need somebody that you can get a hold of, somebody that's going to be there for you to get back out of it, and then maybe back into the stock market, maybe back into something else when things settle down. But right now is not that time. You need somebody that you trust and somebody you can call and make those worries go away.
That's exactly right. So you can go to flyovergold.com, fill out your information for your free consultation, or you can call 720-605-3900. 3900. Do it today.
You'll be glad you did.
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by the you know the thing.
We will shut you down. We will cite you, and if we need to, we will arrest you and we will take you to jail. Period.
I wasn't thinking of the Bill of Rights when we did this.
But no amendment to the Constitution is absolute.
God actually spoke to me. He spoke about sacredness. He said to me, Kim, what I place in many, many people is sacred. And if anybody touches what is sacred to me, then it is the end for them. So what I've done in the United States of America is sacred. And there are people on every side that are trying to destroy what I deem sacred. And it's not going to happen.
This is the definition of criminal conspiracy, racketeering, and collusion. This is not a theory. This is evidence.
Because I have upheld this country to spread the light to the rest of the world. When you choose to go against the sacred thing that God put to the very heart and the soil of this nation, this was sacred to God.
This ReAwaken tour is literally what it means. It has reawakened the American heart.
Flyover family, join me every Wednesday for the Prophetic Report at 11:11 Central. You can find it on Rumble. You can find it on the Flyover app. We have such an incredible time of hearing from all of these different prophetic voices like Robin Bullock, Julie Green, Barry Wunsch, Amanda Grace, and Hank Kuhneman. Every week, it's either 5 or 6 different prophets that are speaking, and what's interesting is God is speaking through them, and all of these voices come together like puzzle pieces. It is so exciting to hear what the Lord is saying. We're hearing from medical. We're hearing from military intelligence. We're hearing from the financial world. We're hearing from mainstream media, but the most important is, what is God saying? He has not fallen off the throne. He's not nervous. He's not chewing his nails. He is in control. He has plans to prosper us and not to harm us. What a great time to be alive, and I'm so excited for you to join me every Wednesday at 11:11. For more great content, go to flyoverconservatives.com.